The following is a member of the Burke Reviews podcast family. BurkeReviews.com.
Top 5 movies. Top 5. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies. Top 5 movies.
Hey everybody, welcome to Top 5 Movies. I'm John Burke, and with me this week is Corey Starr.
Hello, hello.
And Michael Sanchez.
Hello.
And this week on the episode, we're going to be looking at our top 5 favorite dynamic duos inspired by the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp this past week. A movie that I got to see and love very much, and hope you two will go and check it out. But these are basically movies that feature a pair of heroes or buddies, or maybe opposites, working together for a common goal. So we'll be talking about our favorites and the pairing, who they are, maybe who the actors are, as we work through our list. We're just going to jump into it this week. We have a little bit of a tight schedule, so we don't want to waste any time. I'll be going first, followed by Corey, then Mike. Before we get into our top 5 list, Corey?
Guys, you can go to BurkeReviews.com and check out our list there. Otherwise, full steam ahead. You've been warned. Spoilers.
And as we do, we like to guess how many of Mike's films we will have seen. This one is extremely hard. I have no clue. I feel obligated to let ladies go first. So, Corey, how many of Mike's movies do you think you've seen?
1.
I'm going to go safe and go 2 because I am apprehensive.
When does she not guess 1?
I've done like 2 or 3 before. One time I've guessed 3, and I don't remember if I got it.
If I go first, I think she goes 2.
Yeah.
Because you go 1. Then.
Exactly.
Yes, because you have such an eclectic...
Yeah, there's no... In fact, I was, real quick, if you're a fan of buying movies, the Criterion Collection is on sale right now at Barnes & Noble, and I was browsing, Mike, and I found they had Sallow on the Criterion, so it's half off, but I don't want to watch that, so I didn't buy it.
What? No.
But I was like, hey, I know what this movie is now. Alright, so I'll be going first, as I said. I went kind of all over the place with my list, and my first movie is going to be one that no one else has seen unless you saw it at a film festival from this year. It's called Never Going Back. It's from 2018, as I mentioned. It's directed by Augustine Frizzle and stars Maya Mitchell and Camilla Morone. And it is a female buddy comedy. Very much reminded me of Friday in a lot of ways. And I was kind of blown away by it. It was super funny. And it's one that's coming out in August. I don't know how wide of a release, but it is an A24 film. So do keep your eyes out. If you are in an area that gets a lot of movies, you will definitely be getting Never Going Back in August. With any luck, everyone's going to get it, and it's one that everyone should check out. It's 2 17-year-old, almost 18. It's never 100% clear, but they're still kids, and it's just like a day in their life. Some chaos happens. It's it's really, really funny. I don't want to say too much because it would spoil the movie. And since we did give spoilers, but no one has probably seen this yet, unless you were, again, fortunate enough. I saw it at South by Southwest. I think it premiered at Sundance, and it's been at a few other festivals. But I got to see it at South by and was really blown away by it. So I went ahead and put it on my list. It's one of my favorites from the year so far. So.
This is a very small film. I mean, I don't recognize any names.
Yeah, it's predominantly new people. And Augustine Frizzle, or Frizzell, I feel like it's Frizzell, and I'm going to be embarrassed later.
Frizzle, like Magic School Bus.
She just got
That's what I would
picked.
think too.
Yeah, definitely. She's directing an HBO series right now, though, after the success of this film. And she was at the screening that I saw the film, and she opened it up and did a Q&A after. But it was funny because I saw one of the last screenings at the festival, and apparently some critics had been kind of harsh about it. And I was like, she kind of brought up some of the criticisms, and she's like, I'm not sure if the way they approached it was the best. And I was kind of surprised because she seemed offended by like the criticism. But when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of offended by the criticism because I didn't see any of what they were talking about in the movie. It's there is a sexuality to the film, but it is not over sexualized. And again, I thought the relationship, the fact that it was two female leads, because this is a genre that is very heavy with two guys. The buddy comedy, so to speak. It's if you look through film history, I just mentioned Friday, and again, I do feel like Friday definitely inspires some of the relationship elements of this film, but this buddy comedy is very, very heavy male centric. So I thought it was refreshing to see a two young females, and it's really funny. I laughed a lot through this movie, so I wanted to bring it up and make people aware of it.
My curiosity is piqued, so I will have to let me click the add to watch list button.
There you go. All right, Corey, we move on to you, since I know I've put you guys in an awkward position where you have nothing to say about this movie. So
Yeah, way to go. I struggled with this list anyways. I don't know. I struggle with every list, what's new. But as soon as I started thinking about this, the first thing that came to mind was Bernard and Miss Bianca from The Rescuers.
Oh.
Which it's kind of dumb, kind of childish. I don't know. I still love this movie. I don't watch it as much as I should, for as much as I love it. And I mean, it's a Disney cartoon from I don't even know when, but I just love it. And the crocodiles or the alligators, sorry, in the movie still, I still remember being scared of them when I was a kid, and they were just trying to rescue a little orphan girl. So
1977, and
I thought it was older than that.
Bob Newhart is Bernard, and Eva Gabor as Miss Bianca.
Yeah.
It feels older.
It does. I think the art style.
Yeah, I agree with that. The art style looks very old. The Rescuers Down Under was one that came out when I was a kid, I think, right? Like that was the sequel.
Yes.
I
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that
was.
one. I don't remember this one very much. I don't think I had this as a kid, and I don't know if I ever actually saw the original or not. I definitely saw Rescuers Down Under because I remember the Happy Meal toys being something I was collecting at the time. Interesting.
13
pull.
years later.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty, because I was
90.
not born when this one came out, and I was 8 when the other one came out, apparently. But
Jeez.
Okay.
see, so everyone's talking about The Incredibles, but man, The Rescuers 13 years, Incredibles 14 years. This is a normal thing for Disney to have these gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sure.
I feel like, I don't know, I really enjoyed The Incredibles too. I thought it was fun.
Oh yeah, I had a blast with Incredibles too.
And I
I'm
love
sure
little-
I will if I ever make it to
You
there.
should make it and see it.
And
Not as much anymore.
we can blame it on Big Sick, but I just love that intro with them at the beginning, and it was mostly Holly Hunter, like, we know it's been 14 years, so thanks for hanging in there, or whatever she says. I love that.
I agree, and Big Sick has made me a huge Holly Hunter fan, which I realized after seeing the Big Sick how much of her movies I'd already seen and never clicked, and now I'm like, she's just terrific.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say I love her.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Dibs. I call dibs.
Okay, it's all you, buddy. Let's Mike, do you have anything to add to The Rescuers? Because again, I don't think I've ever seen it.
You really haven't. That's interesting. It's funny you pick an animated duo. That's interesting. I'll just say that.
Oh, there you go. A few words today.
And it's not a negative thing. I'm just going through the process, and it's coming up to my pick anyway, so I can segue really well into that, because this was not an easy list, as we've all agreed, and I actually wrote all my honorable mentions first, because I'm like, that one was. Those are obvious picks. Those ones I've talked about. Those are ones I want to give other ones a chance to shine. So I sent them down. I sent them down to the AA farm, or whatever the expression is in baseball, because I don't do athletics very much, and I worked from there, and then it was a process to try to get through. I didn't even really have a whole lot of time to do notes, but I will say the other part too, and you already hit the nail on the head. Most duos, the way the climate of film is, are going to be buddy male, male duos, and I don't know if I consciously sought to not follow that, but we'll just go right into mine, because But that's got me thinking. The Rescuers has me thinking on a couple of things. Well, because I don't want to give too much of my list away. So there we are. So I went with Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny from 2008's The X-Files, I Want to Believe. Now, there is a reason I went with that particular one, because for me, the original X-Files film, because that was The Truth Is Out There, if I'm correct, right?
I think so.
Which I love. I love them both. And honestly, the resurgence of the TV series back on Fox, just so fulfilling and satisfying to me. Because Fox is notorious for, they did it to Firefly, they've done it to other series. Well, they'll just have this vision and just totally sabotage it in some way or form. And I feel there was a couple of years the X-Files where you had a couple of rough patches with Chris Carter, but ultimately I think Chris Carter was given a lot of free reign with his show. And by the time we got to 2008, I cannot believe this was 10 years ago, with I Want to Believe. And have you both seen this one?
No.
What?
I've only seen the first one.
I've only seen season 1 and 2 of the show, so I'm still way behind.
Okay, well, and see, I think you almost have to, even the original film, because I felt with that one there was, it definitely seemed like, okay, well, we're going into just an extended TV episode. And this one didn't quite have that feeling to me. And they added, let me dig up his name, because he was good on Head of the Class, the Billy Connolly. And was not part of the duo, but the chemistry worked really well together. At this point, Scully and Mulder had this history, and you get a lot up, which you're not into it in the series yet. It just really worked for me. They clicked, but at the very end, this does not spoil anything plot-wise, but there's a pan-out scene with Mulder and Scully on a rowboat, and you see them glance at this. I remember seeing this in the theater, and when they glance up, they both wave at the camera. As if, because I think at that time they didn't know what was going to happen. That was their goodbye, and it was like, that's how I interpreted it. I don't know if I was the only one, but they both look up, and it's a very casual wave, and then it goes out, and it goes out into the atmosphere and further and beyond, and then there's your end, and credits, and it's just all around at this point, especially for people that were fan of the X-Files. Just to see them on film and see, because there's a lot of history that you got to go into with by the time you get to that film.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch the movies, but I know I need to really finish the series, and I started the movie thing, and the series got put to the back burner. But I did love the first 2 seasons, and if you are like me and you've not watched the X-Files but you want to, Kumail Nanjiani, who was in The Big Sick, wrote The Big Sick.
Obviously, a big fan.
He's a big X-File fan. In fact, that's a joke in the Big Sick film. But he has a podcast called The X-Files Files, where he goes episode by episode, has different guests on. Yeah, I was watching the show and listening to the podcast. I don't know if he ended up doing the entire thing. He's gotten way more famous since I started that podcast. So I don't know if he's still doing it. So or if he made it through all 8 seasons or 7 seasons or whatever. But he did get to appear on one of the new episodes because of his podcast.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so he got to live a fantasy out. So
Andrew Secunda and Matt Myra have Star Trek: The Next Conversation. They're up to season 3 of the Next Generation series, and I think their plan is to eventually go through everything. I'm not sure. I'm glad they started Next Generation instead of. I don't want to drag on too long, but they just. I can see me liking the X-Files files really well. I need to dig that up on my podcast manager app in a second here.
And it's cool because Kumail went digging on old forums and stuff. So he'll pull up reactions to the episodes from the time they came out. That he found still embedded online and stuff, which was really cool. To the early days of the internet, X-Files was one of the more popular topics. Which makes sense of who the fans are and who would be using the internet in the early 90s. So, but let's not dwell too long because we do have, again, a little bit of a time crunch today. So, my number 4 pick is a sports movie, which is funny because Mike was just talking about sports not being his thing, but this is one of my favorites. White Man Can't Jump from 1992.
Oh, that's such nice. That's
Such a good one.
Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson, I think, are a terrific buddy combination. They did Money Train after this movie because they got along so well, but I loved their dynamic in this film. They're enemies, but they're best friends, and they're opposites, and they're similar. But they're both basketball players. It's got some of my favorite basketball hustling scenes. Rosie Perez is one of her better performances.
Definitely.
And the whole thing with Jeopardy is great. Like I really, really enjoyed this movie for most of my life. I saw it in the theater as a kid because I loved basketball.
Oh.
Yeah, I love basketball, so I was allowed to go watch this, even though it's very R. And I've seen it. I can't even tell you how many times. It's a movie I love. And when looking at this, I didn't struggle to come up with movies. I struggled to figure out which 5 I wanted to put in my top 5. I have a lot of honorable mentions. I'll skip through them. I won't do all of them when we get there. But, and like you said, for the most part, I tried to leave a couple of the obvious ones off. I did allow myself my number 1 to be what could be an obvious pick if you've been listening to this podcast for a while. But I tried to keep the other 4 a little more obscure. And while White Man Can't Jump would not be obscure, it was a blockbuster of sorts. It's one that I think has maybe people have forgotten about. I think it holds up. It's definitely going to have some 90s stuff in it. There's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some homophobic type references in it. Maybe
the fashion.
The fashion definitely does not hold up. His Wesley Snipes hat with the bill flipped up is one of the funniest things. I'm like, I've never known anyone to wear a hat like that. But, and the tank tops and the spandex. Yeah, it's...
I'll be honest. Rosie Perez typically grates on me. She was perfect in that role. It was like that was her. She was the most palatable in that one.
I mean, she's great in Do the Right Thing too, but she's barely in Do the Right Thing as far as like she's a prominent character in this. And there's some great scenes. I love the talking about Jimi Hendrix, and there's the talk about racism in an interesting way because you have this dynamic of a white guy and then a black guy, and then they're not afraid to like touch on those differences and talk about the cultural differences and the whole conversation about you can't hear Jimmy like that. I think the movie's maybe underrated because it's a basketball movie. Like, it's a really good buddy story. You feel for Woody Harrelson. He's a flawed character, but I love this movie. I'm kind of wanting to rewatch it after talking about it so much. So, White Man Can't Jump.
I want to rewatch it after you talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, a good pull. Because I've forgotten about that one.
Good, awesome. I mentioned this. I was at Miller Ale House for the UFC fight on Saturday night with some of my friends, and I was talking about the list that I was making, and brought up White Man Can't Jump, and the table was like, "Oh my God, that's perfect." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, good. I think I've got a good pull here." Corey, what's your number 4?
Okay, I can talk about this movie because we just watched it for Movie Club. And you think I chose Dirk and Reed from Boogie Nights.
Oh, okay. Oh, man.
It's kind of a weird one, and I really liked your, like what you brought up when we were talking about it for Movie Club, that even their initial meeting, they're like trying to one-up each other, but it's still kind of friendly. Yeah. And then, like, Reed isn't really an attractive guy, but they end up being really good friends, and neither of them feels, like, they don't feel intimidated or...
Wait a minute. Are you saying there's an ugly friend in duos? There's always a good-looking one, and
no,
not
I
always.
mean in this case where Reed could feel like his in jeopardy, his job or like his standing within this. I don't know if you want to call it a company, but could be because of this really good-looking guy Dirk. But he never is like that at all. He never becomes not confident in himself.
And in case you listeners do not know, Dirk Diggler is played by Mark Wahlberg, and Reed is played by John C. Reilly. So,
what? No.
Just to make sure that you get the visual comparison. No offense, John, but let's be real. Like Wahlberg kind of makes every guy look a little fugly. So, Corey, I didn't even think about this movie, but because it's they do kind of break off too as the movie progresses and have their own buddy story of them trying to achieve a goal, like their band and stuff. So
oh my gosh, and when he sings Touch from Transformers,
oh
and then they get mixed up in bad things.
Alfred Molina, who plays a psycho in that one. loosely based on the one character that John Holmes run into in real life. Anyway, yeah, and also a good pull. Yeah, a lot of that is probably taken a little bit from John Holmes' life, a little bit.
Interesting. I did not know that, but I'm not surprised. PTA is a pretty talented guy, so yeah.
I mean, we watched a movie about porn stars, so
Yeah, but
I mean, it wasn't really about porn stars.
It's not, right? Like,
It's the I mean, it sets the frame for it, but I mean, they're humanized. It's not like, I mean, Nina Hartley plays Nina Hartley pretty much. So
it's really about family, though.
Yes, definitely.
They're all alienated from other, like, their real families, and they find a home in this group of people, and that's what's so compelling about that movie to me. Was it on the surface it looks like, oh, this is just some exploitation porn film, and it's not at all.
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Yeah,
I mean, think about the way Julianne Moore is with Heather Graham's character. There's like the mother-daughter. The way
She's that
Don
way with Dirk.
Cheadle. Yeah.
Relationship with Dirt.
Yeah, even though it's really creepy because like she treats him like a son and they have sex, so it's like okay, but yeah, it is.
You made it weird, Bert.
Well, it's weird.
It was already weird.
Yeah,
it was awkward watching the movie. I was uncomfortable. I was like, oh no.
But yeah,
I'm glad I was not there for the viewing because there are some awkward scenes.
There are for sure,
and I definitely feel bad for little Bill. And then
yes, that was. I was not expecting that.
No, and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Just trying to cling on, There's a lot going on in it, and people don't, you're right. That Paul Thomas Anderson is.
Yeah. I wish that was my original observation, but yeah, he's a genius. Mike, what is your number 4?
All right, so now I'm moving into so I just took it duos. I'll just go with it, and this was one I've recently watched again, and it always sticks in my mind, and I just had a moment with someone where I'm like, I literally quoted the part where I asked if they'd ever listened to the Shins, and they had asked, and I said, I told them that'll change their life, and that's how I was introduced to what's that band we were just talking about,
Volbeat.
Volbeat, thank you. And then they said that was their life-changing band, so I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, all that to say, I went with Natalie Portman and Zach Braff in Garden State from 2004 as Samantha and Andrew Largeman, just to watch them together, and just from the initial, I just can't help but giggle at the initial meeting between the two of them. She has no idea why he is, he's running late to his doctor's appointment and has a run-in with a German Shepherd CNI dog that gets very attached to him, so to speak, and she's just she has this reaction that any of us would have and laugh, and he's like, can you help, got any suggestions here? And she very bluntly tells him what to do because she knows what it's like to have big dogs, and if she did not kick them where she says to kick them, she wouldn't get anything done. Just it goes from there, and then there's at the end a moment where they both mutually agree to leave where they're at an ellipsis. And then, the first time I'm like, this is what's going to happen, because they've gone through this whole thing and now he's leaving. And then it goes, that's what you think is going to be the end. And then one of the qualities for films for me, and I feel that you guys would agree, is you don't want it to end. You want to know what happens further with these characters. And I've always wanted to know what ended up with Sam and Andrew.
True. Yeah, and that's definitely a movie that leaves you thinking about it. Is always one that will stay in the forefront of your mind when you're looking at lists like this, especially. I really like that film. That's an interesting one because I try to avoid romance, and I think the romance comes late enough where it is more of a buddy comedy at first. Like they're exploring life, and then the love story kind of follows from that. But
I mean, given the time period of in the film, it happens really quickly, but it just, I don't know, it just felt very natural. It's like, wow, that's how, people would meet. And
Well,
Yeah.
and that is the interesting thing about these buddy stories is that they are love stories, but they're not romantic love stories, right? Like,
Platonic.
yeah,
platonic.
but they are often two people who think they have nothing, no way they can get along, and then you watch that relationship build, or like in Never Going Back or Friday, we join an existing relationship and we just kind of see, a day in that relationship. It's already, the friendship's already there, but we see how they clash and how they manage, despite their differences, to always kind of come back and be there for each other. And that kind of leads into my next movie, which I've done this again, guys. I'm sorry, but this is another movie neither of you have seen, and most of the world has not seen yet, because I saw it at South by Southwest. And it is from 2018, Blind Spotting, starring Daveed Diggs and Raphael Casal, and is also co-written by these two guys. And if you're not familiar with Daveed Diggs, he got super famous from Hamilton. He was on the Broadway performance. He is an up-and-comer, and this movie blew me away. It's currently in my top 50 all-time movies, and it is currently sitting at my number 1 spot for this year. It was my favorite movie that I've seen so far. It comes out this month. I don't know how wide of a release it's going to have. I'm hoping for a very wide one, because I think everyone should see this film. But it actually debuted at Sundance. Came to South by Southwest. The guys were actually there when I saw it. I could not, it is such a funny movie, and yet it deals with some very poignant issues of right now, and it has a lot to say, and it says it in some very cool artistic ways. It's directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada. I believe he was more of a music video director prior to this, and that shows at moments. There's some really cool stylistic elements in this film, but what I think really works, why it's number 3 on my dynamic duo, is that these guys are best friends in real life, from what I gather. Like, they wrote the script together. They've been working on this project for a long time, and I think Daveed's newfound fame gave them the leverage to get it made. And the opening sequence alone is so funny. They're sitting in a car. The premise, Daveed Diggs' character Colin has 3 days left until he's off probation. And through the course of the film, you find out why he's on probation, so I won't reveal that, because I do think that's part of the story. But this movie is about their relationship and the impact they have on each other. You have a black guy and a white guy living in Oakland now, and they're born and raised there, and it deals with gentrification. I mean, the movie is brilliant in so many ways. Super engaging, super fun, and yet there was a moment where I got chills and was left kind of stunned silence of what I was watching, and just awed. Walked out of the theater just blown away, and I've been wanting to talk more about this movie, but no one I know has seen it yet, because it's not out in wide release. So I'm waiting for this month for hopefully more people I know to have finally had their chance to see it and to have these conversations I want to have about it. But I think their relationship stands very strong amongst all of the film history duos, and I think it's partly because they were really friends. So the script, they wrote the characters to be probably not necessarily exactly how their relationship is, but probably mirrored some of it. So Blind Spotting from 2018, my number 3. Corey, I guess we'll just move into yours.
Well, I know him from The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I was I know that guy.
Okay.
He was only in a few episodes, and then he just disappeared, which made me sad, but...
Well, he's also
Scary.
he plays the teacher
big
in
things.
Wonder from this past year with Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson and Jacob Tremblay. He plays the teacher. Doesn't get a lot to do there, and he is on a commercial for one of the money sending services, like a new PayPal. I can't think of what it's called, but where he's rapping about this app. But yeah, he's great. So check it out, guys. Corey, what is your number 3?
Well, I just recently rewatched there are 2 films. So I went with Wayne and Garth is my personal favorite. But yeah, I don't know.
I
don't
wanted
know
to put them.
Like the second one.
I don't either. I do not understand why people don't like the second one. I love the second one. I wanted to put that on my list, but I've talked about Wayne's World several times, so I'm glad it's on your list, because come on, it's Wayne and Garth, man. They're best buds. They go through everything together. Wayne's World 2 is even more focused on their relationship and like Garth, becoming his own person, not just doing what Wayne says. Like it's great dynamic. I know Mike has seen these as well.
I barely remember the second one. I probably should watch it again, but I did love the first one, and yeah, I mean, they are iconic. I'm trying to think. What did I just saw a Garth figure of some sort. And it was kind of like a.
You were in my truck. It's the air freshener Corey got me.
No. I want to say it was a vinyl. I remember seeing that because I'm like, I looked at it. I did that. My head to the side. Thing. I was like, okay, I did see that, but I think it was on because I've been on a meme hunt, just because it's my break time and I can do that, and I didn't grab a screen cap of it because it was kind of scary because it was like an exaggerated, version of Garth. But anyway,
you did make me think though. Funko Pop. I want my Wayne and Garth vinyls, please. What's going on?
How long ago did you order them?
They don't exist. I'm saying.
Oh.
Why don't they exist? What's going on?
Yet made.
People will buy them.
Mm-hmm. They're doing Saturday Night Live characters. How do we not have Wayne and Garth? Come on, Pop.
Mike Myers is like, nah, I don't want my likeness.
Mike, I'm pretty sure right now, Mike Myers will take any money that he can get. So, I don't know if they get money for those.
Maybe it's Dana Carvey. Maybe Dana Carvey's holding out.
Maybe, but let's make that a thing, Funko. I want Wayne and Garth. They have Tommy Boy Pop vinyls, Like, how do we not have Wayne's World? Yeah, you can get Tommy and Richard Pop vinyls. Where's Wayne and Garth? All right. I love that pick, Corey. So definitely a good dynamic duo. They get a lot of credit, and that's the second one that started off as a TV character turned film because the X-Files is the same way. Mike, what do you have for number 3?
For number 3, I feel like you guys will think I would have had this at a higher number. It was tough not making them my number 1, but here we are anyway. I went with Kurt Russell and Dennis Dunn from 1986's Big Trouble in Little China.
Nice.
And we just had, thank you, that conversation, which when it comes, because that's in a couple of weeks here, I do want to see it at that one theater. We just had that little bit in the conversation where we get to see this snapshot of these two characters during this time period. Clearly, Jack Burton and Wang have had a history before. They didn't just meet, they've been friends for a while, and they get thrown into this crazy, absurd situation. He's helping his buddy out, giving him a ride to the airport to pick up his fiancée, who's been saving money to bring over from from China. And then they get they're way over their head. And I have loved this film. I know that I wasn't aware of John Carpenter's involvement until later, because when I was watching it originally, I had I wasn't really paying attention to that stuff. And it's grown to be a cult classic at this point. But yes, I know he agrees. Or lady, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, to me, these two just are always going to be friends, and I wish we'd gotten more Jack Burton stories. I know there's comics that are attributed to the. You've gotten me a figure. I've got a couple other little things. Mm-hmm. I really love these characters, and I love this cheesy 80s, not quite easily put into one single genre film. Action, I guess, sci-fi, a little bit of both.
It's IMDb has it as action adventure comedy, so who knows, man. It's definitely got some sci-fi stuff in it, and fantasy for sure.
It's got the black blood of the earth.
Yeah, it's such a cool movie. I remember as a kid, my grandpa loved this, and I don't think I got it as a kid. And I rewatched it. I don't know. It's probably been 10 years now that I first rewatched it, like as an adult, and was like, "Oh my god, this is so much fun." So yeah, I'm excited to see it on the big screen. Okay, Corey, have you seen Big Trouble?
I have.
Not a fan from the sound of it.
I think it's too much of a man's movie for me. Sorry, guys.
What? There's some strong. Kim Cattrall's character is such a strong.
Or maybe what's the other? No, I think that it was this one that I saw.
This one's pretty wild. Like, there's like a guy shooting lightning out of his fingers, and like it's very fantasy kung fu film almost in some ways.
And he fights 3 guys in the alley with his semi.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the one.
Okay, because I know that isn't there another film in the series?
No. But
No.
Escape
All
from
right,
New York is maybe the other one.
Oh, that's what I might be thinking of, but I haven't seen that, so it is this one I've seen.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Well, I mean, it's a loosely associated film with Buckaroo Banzai Across
Oh.
the Eighth Dimension. Very loosely. There was supposed to be some sort of connection, but I'm working off of memory. It's been a long while.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Now I have to do some digging. My number 2 pick is still kind of new, but it's from 2016, and it's I think the first one where it features a kid and an adult. And I went with Hunt for the Wilder People from Taika
I'm
Waititi.
doing this one, and I was like, I talk about that movie too much. Good pick.
And Sam Neill, Julian Dennison, Heck and Ricky, unlikely duo. They do not expect to be together, and circumstances put them together and on the run, which makes their relationship all the more intense because they're gonna get agitated. Ricky is not an outdoorsy kid, and now he's living in the woods, and like everything is tough and challenging. You even get their pairing of the dogs with like that's kind of got its own buddy comedy going on. I feel like this is Taika's kind of attempt of a buddy movie, and it's amazing. It's brilliant. It's super fun. It's one that I like to be an advocate for because it's not one everybody has heard of. And if you saw Thor Ragnarok and thought that was funny, same director, same writer here, and I can't stress enough, you need to watch Hunt for the Wilder People. Sam Neill is so good, and it's reminiscent of Jurassic Park in some ways because you have that kind of grumpy adult on, and it's the same
Doesn't
actor,
like
obviously,
kids.
Who doesn't really like kids, forced to be with
That's
kids.
what happened. That's why he's not in the new Jurassic Park films. He retired.
Yeah, he went to New Zealand.
It's so funny. I rewatched this not too long ago because I really love that movie, Hunt for the Wilder People, and then I'm in the middle watching Jurassic Park right now
Oh, nice.
because Bill just won't commit to watching the other half. But it's so funny just seeing him so young, and he is still kind of that same character.
And Julian Dennison obviously shows up in this year's Deadpool 2. So
Yep.
if you saw Deadpool 2 and you're like, that kid's funny, well, another reason to go watch Hunt for the Wilder People because he is kind of the same character, except he doesn't have superpowers. But some of the dialogue he says in Deadpool 2 is like straight out of this movie.
I shared not that long ago when I was wearing my Deadpool shirt and at the orthodontist, and they asked about it, and I parlayed that. I talked up Hunt for the Wilder People to those people. I had at least 3 or 4 people really interested in it, and I'm like, yes, because not a whole lot of people have seen it, and more people should.
Yeah,
You're missing out.
It's so funny. God, there's so many great scenes, and I taught this the same year it came out. After I watched it, and I was like, I have to show my students because they're gonna love this movie. And it was so great because initially I think they were all apprehensive, and then like the scene early in the film where it's his birthday and the woman is singing, Bella is singing the Happy Birthday Ricky Baker song. It's Ricky Baker. You just saw everyone in the room like connect immediately, like this is the best thing ever. And it won that year. My class voted it for their favorite movie that we watched for the year. So
I don't think we even mentioned that they're both like trying to work through that loss too.
I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, and it is early. Bella dies very, very early in the film, and that's why they're put together and why they're forced to run because Heck called the child services to pick him up. I love child services too, just because he's such a bad kid. He's wanted for spitting and kicking things. Oh man. Okay. That's
So
my
good.
number 2. And that was a change. I decided to put that on as my number 2 because I love that dynamic between the 2 characters, and you see both of them take on characteristics of the other character, and I love that. All right, that's my 2. Let's go to Corey. What do you got?
Okay, guys, I have Spock and Kirk from the Star Trek reboot.
The first Star Trek reboot?
I would say all of them, but yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, these with Zachary Quinto and
No,
now
yeah,
I'm forgetting.
that's what I meant. I
Okay.
wasn't sure if you meant Star Trek or Into Darkness or Beyond, which are the
It
three
could
the
be
3
any.
films.
but we'll
Okay.
go with the first one.
There you go.
I love them so much together, and I really like Zachary Quinto as a Spock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
they're
fine.
just so opposite. And sorry, go ahead.
I'll be honest, I liked the reboot. I really enjoyed it. But if we're going Spock and Kirk, I'm sticking with Shatner and Nimoy. Because, again, they came from the original Star Trek, the cheesiness, and it did not immediately cross over in Star Trek the Motion Picture. I think that was 79, 77, 79. But by the time The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 2 came around, and see, because Into Darkness, really, I mean, I couldn't forgive that they outright lied and said it was not going to be Khan. It was Khan, and that has already been done. Why do that when they were doing so well? You know what I mean? With
it was a
the
weird
reboot
attempt of a twist.
Yeah, well, there's so much they could have done. I do appreciate the new franchise, not to take away from it, but I feel more invested with Shatner and Nimoy, which I had a conversation, and the person was not a Shatner fan. I'm like, oops.
Maybe they've heard some of those really bad recordings he's made.
Maybe, but I think it's more the stories of pompousness and whatnot. Because I'll be honest, I can tell you all the biographies I've read. I've read the 2 different Nimoy ones. I've read at least one Shatner one, the George Takei one, Nichelle Nichols. I don't know that I've read a Walter Koenig one. So I'm telling you, I'm way invested, and that's why I'm like, I don't know that I could go with the.
I watched the show when I was a kid, and it just never, So I do have to credit J.J. Abrams probably for bringing a lot of people, including myself.
Chris Pine, A Wrinkle in Time notwithstanding, because I've rented it and ended up not even watching. No one in my house wanted to watch it. It's like they had this bad feeling about it, and they're not the only ones. He is real. Everyone really was really good in it, so it's tough for me not to like the choice. So there we are.
I like it. I like Bones and Kirk a little more.
Yeah,
he played him so well, man.
Carl Urban is, I think, a severely underused talent.
Yes, underrated. Dredd was terribly it was terribly overlooked.
Yeah, so overlooked.
I know there are Stallone fans that feel he is the Dredd, but no,
not
Carl
at all.
Urban became Judge Dredd, and Olivia Thirlby was just a good that's a good duo right there. Oh, I forgot about them.
Yeah, see, there you go. Demolition Man. Yeah. Sorry. Sandy B and Stallone, man. All right.
I just love her so much. Olivia Thirlby, and I always forget the name of the movie. Dang it, it's 5 to 7.
Yeah, great movie, great Anton Yelchin film.
I finally finished Odd Thomas, and
I
want to watch it again. Yeah,
did you not cry
I managed to keep myself together. I was
I lost it.
Me too.
During that time when how could you not? I was just like, because I knew that's where reading spoilers helped me. That I'm like, okay. But the fact is that we're never going to see another Odd Thomas film when there's so many Odd Thomas stories. Yeah, well, true. It probably didn't perform like they wanted it to. It's just, for what it was, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a real fun movie, and he's always great, and it's such a tragedy that he's gone. But
yeah.
All right, let's go to Mike's number 2.
This was another one that I know I've talked about. I ended up putting it on the list because I have no cares about it. I feel that this is a solid pick for me, and it definitely defines me as well. Because let's see, it came out in '86. River Phoenix and Will Wheaton in Stand By Me. And yes, there were the other 2 characters. However, these 2 characters were the main. Gordy and Chris Chambers were the main part. I mean, they're the ones that stayed together, and even through the epilogue, that what happens. And I've talked up the body. I didn't realize that the body itself was printed separately. There's someone I follow on Instagram that has gone through all these Stephen King's stories, and I lent out my copy that has the compilation of short stories that includes the body. I'm like, okay, this is to one of my freshmen who showed some interest in horror. I'm like, really? They hadn't read it. They hadn't read The Mist. Like, these two, I want them back, but I could probably find extras, and if I do, then they're yours. But the just that coming of age story and these two teens, I remember going. We had these buddies that you think are going to be your friends forever, and just like the line says, you never have friends like you do when you were 12, and that they just stuck with me.
I really need to rewatch this film. Like, I saw it as a kid. I've probably seen it again, but it's been a long time, and I have very little recollection of it. I just know it's been culturally referenced dozens of times, and I'm aware what it's referencing, but I need to sit and watch this movie. I bought it a while back on Blu-ray, and I have not rewatched it, and I need to make an effort to do so.
I love it so much.
It's Stephen King is, again, one of those writers you in your mind think all he's good at is horror, and he can do so much more.
Yeah.
I know people who don't like his horror but really enjoy his dramas.
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I'm a little behind. I want to read Mr. Mercedes, which is a new one, and I know there's a sequel to The Shining. There's another one I just saw at Walmart, the big chain place, but I've forgotten what it is. It sounded interesting. It's just I got so much to read. But anyway.
Well, I think that should segue into our number one. So there's a lot of obvious choices that I could have made here, but when I looked back through, there was one that stood out to me as this is my favorite buddy duo, and they've done 3 movies together, but I think this film is the one where their relationship is the most important aspect of the film, and it's Hot Fuzz from 2007. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They are an amazing buddy duo. I could have gone Shaun of the Dead, but I feel like that movie is more focused on his relationship with the girl and how his friendship affects that relationship. And then World's End, which is actually my favorite of the trilogy, I feel like is focused on the whole group, even though it does center around the 2 guys. The end adds a third guy as a major element to it. So I felt like the dynamic of the 2 was not the focus. Where here, this is the one movie where we see their friendship start. The other 2 movies, they're already friends. One is they're currently friends, roommates even, and World's End, they are estranged friends who reconnect. This is a film where their friendship blossoms. We see it, the initial meeting, and how they are so opposite, especially in Hot Fuzz. And of course, it parodies other films that I could have had on this list, including one that might be on one of yours, so I'll hold off to mention it. But one of I would say, the first buddy cop movies of all time. This movie kind of parodies that in a lot of ways, but I'm such a fan of these 2 guys together. I could have even gone with the not so loved Paul, because I do like Paul. I think Paul is very funny, and again, it's because of these 2 guys. But Hot Fuzz focuses so much on their relationship and both of them learning to be better people. Nicholas Angel, Simon Pegg's character, learns to lighten up a little bit as a result of Danny, and Danny learns to be a better police officer as a result of being connected with this fascist, I believe is the term that's thrown at him a few times in the film.
Wow.
And not from me, it's literally in the movie, but
yeah,
it is such a great film. The more I rewatch Hot Fuzz, the more I appreciate it. It was initially not one I loved the very first viewing, and on subsequent viewings I've just fallen so head over heels with this movie, and Edgar Wright, who is my favorite director, and this just works for me. So again, there's tons of buddies I could have put at my number 1, but I went with this one because I really do. I hold these 2 in such high regard in so many ways, both as actors and as characters, and as Edgar Wright creations. So Hot Fuzz 2007.
Can't go. I mean, they're great, so I can't talk badly about them.
Nor should you.
You're right. I should not.
Corey, you have anything?
No, I should rewatch this one.
Definitely. I highly recommend.
Still need to watch Paul.
Paul is not for everybody, but I find Paul very funny. Kristen Wiig's in Paul, by the way. I
was
don't know if you know
just about
that.
to say, doesn't Kristen Wiig? You've used that as a selling point before. I've just seen it big time.
And Jason Bateman's in it, who I'm a fan of. Bill Hader is also in it.
Oh yes, I
So
love him too.
there's some really good stuff in it. It's stupid, but I always found a lot of joy in it.
Sometimes
But
that's
it's
okay.
good, stupid. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just
Agreed.
there are people that really dislike it.
Yeah, there are, right? Like, there's a lot of hate for Paul, and I don't get why there's hate. I get why you don't like it, but, like, why do you hate it? Like, calm down. I mean, I don't know. It starts off at Comic-Con in San Diego, and then they travel down. Jane Lynch has a cameo that's really funny, but she's not in it very long. All right, that's it. Number one, Hot Fuzz for me. Corey, what about you?
Okay, guys. So like I said, I struggled really hard with this, and I know I've talked about this movie before, but I love it so much. And all of the ones that have come after it just haven't lived up to the spookiness and absolute, I'll say, terror. It scared me, and it's fun to see in the theater, and it's fun to see with other people. I chose Ed and Lorraine Warren from The Conjuring.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Even though, apparently, in real life, they were crackpots and con artists, is what I've read. But they're demonologists, and they're really trying to help the Perrin family. And I love Vera Farmiga, and now I'm forgetting his
Patrick
name.
Wilson.
I always forget his name. I'm the worst. Thank
Patrick
you.
Wilson, yeah.
Yes, I love them together. Yeah.
It's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected them.
Yeah, but it makes sense because while they are a married couple, the movie only a little bit dabbles with the love they have. It's definitely a part of it, but it's more about their collaboration in the work environment that they have created for themselves. Apparently, in real life, truly created for themselves. But yeah, they play off each other really well in the movies, and they have their professional. I think in the second movie, I think it gets a little more into their love. But what'd you say?
Because I couldn't hear you, it kind of cut out for a little bit.
Yeah, cut out for like a quick second.
Oops.
And also, like, how different they are in that relationship. Like, she's a clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, they need each other. They're opposites, yet they're driven towards the same goal. It meets the criteria. So I say that works. And I like those movies. I like the first one way more though. The second one, there's some of the choices they do with like the Slender Man looking guy, the Crooked Man, I think is what they called him.
I think so.
I didn't like that part of it.
I still liked it, but then Annabelle Creation just kind of, I don't know.
I liked the Creation. I didn't like Annabelle, but I like.
Oh,
Creation.
maybe. Oh no. Annabelle. Which one takes place in the orphanage or whatever?
I think that's Creation. That's the one that came out last.
Yeah, that wasn't my favorite then. Sorry.
Oh well, you're wrong, but that's okay.
Next up. Bye.
Same director from Lights Out, Corey. Come on. All right. Well, fine. Mike, what's your number one, bub?
All right. We'll see if you guys are surprised. I went with this duo, an odd one as well for me. Natalie Portman and John Reno in 1994's The Professional.
I'm not surprised.
I haven't seen this.
I considered this one actually, and I kind of wish I had put it on my list, but I just watched this. This was my last movie of 2016 when I did the challenge. This is what I ended. I watched it on New Year's Eve for the first time, and liked it very much.
There's only a couple little spots that are a little disconcerting, but overall, just this relationship that you see from its initial beginning and to what happens with them, then I cannot believe, let's see, she was 13 when it was released, probably 12 when she was filming. I'm in awe. Gary Oldman's amazing in it. Luc Besson, I wish he continued to have made films like this, but he does not.
And now he's awful because I believe he was accused of rape recently. So,
oh Lord,
yeah, it's. I guess it seems to be a horrible trend with people that are talented, or at least he was talented. But yeah, and this movie, Columbina is the kind of spiritual
yes, it's
sequel,
like a spiritual successor. Yes, definitely, I agree with that. I could see that if they had gotten the people back. Not John Reno, obviously.
Yeah,
but,
no, spoilers, which we gave a warning for. But yeah. Yeah, this is a good pick because it kind of, it's not the same as Hunt for the Wilder People, obviously, but we do have that dynamic again of the adult and child duo, the teacher and the mentor, so to speak, and again, they are teaching each other something, right? Like, they both learn from one another, because he's an assassin. He's not used to having company at all, and then having to learn how to kind of be a father to a young girl, and like deal with some of her, because he's trying to teach her to be a hitman, but she's not 100% committed to that at all times. Like the scenes where they do like the talent show, or like the dress up talent show.
The charades.
Yes. Oh man, those scenes are so good. And his taking care of the plant, which transcends into his kind of initial taking care of her. It's like, I just feed her and then she'll be fine, right? Like, that's all.
I'll just feed and water her, and then that's it.
That's it. You wash them off, and then you move on. Exactly. Nobody had the most obvious, I think, that could have been on this list, which it looks like, I'm guessing all of us left off, but Han and Chewie.
Yeah, I have it as an honorable mention.
Yeah, it could have been from any of the films.
I have them. I have them as honorable.
I would have gone with Solo, to be honest, because I think that's where it's really their buddy story. But any of the films, their duo is definitely strong. But I left them off. The most obvious one for me, which originally was my number 2, and I opted to take it off, was Lethal Weapon, Danny Glover and Mel Gibson.
I almost did that because I just watched at least 2 or 3 of them this week.
Yeah, and Shane Black wrote this character and is credited by many with the buddy cop genre, that he created it. Hot Fuzz parodies that in some ways, and definitely worthy of listing. I'll real quick power through pretty much every Kevin Smith movie except for Chasing Amy. And you could argue Chasing Amy, but I feel like Chasing Amy's more of a triangle love story. But like Mallrats is very heavily based on the buddy duo. The Clerks 1 and 2, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Even Dogma, the buddy story is really with the angels, right? Affleck and Damon are the buddies, and how they get each other into trouble. I had 2 Paul Rudd movies. I Love You Man with Jason Segel and Paul Rudd. I think that is probably the best buddy love story in existence. And then Role Models, Paul Rudd and Seann William Scott, I think it's just absolutely fantastic. Real quick to knock some others out: Nice Guys, Friday, Back to the Future, 21 Jump Street, Keanu, which is the Keegan-Michael Key, Jordan Peele, and then another movie you haven't seen called The New Romantic, it's another female buddy story, Jesse Barden and Haley Law, and then one that is, I think, the most interesting on my honorable mentions. I'm calling it the Trip Trilogy, which is Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. They're playing themselves, going on a trip to various restaurants, and it's just them kind of sitting and having dinner and making a bunch of jokes. But you get a little bit about their friendship, and like, I don't know, I felt like it was a worthy kind of, if you haven't seen the trip to Italy or the trip to Spain, I believe all 3 are on Netflix right now, and they're all very, very funny and easy to watch. You can just throw them on in the background even, and just look up for the humor. It's great. That's my honorable
I really
mentions.
like him. I think you need to watch 24-Hour Party People. I wish I had my copy still. I think someone borrowed it and never gave it back, because Coogan is fantastic in it.
Dang it, I really do need to see. I need to see more of his stuff, but yeah. Have you seen any of the trips?
No, but I need to.
I recommend it for sure.
I'll fire one up as I'm fiddling around after this.
I think that one of them is at least on Netflix.
I think all of them are. I just watched the most recent one.
I just saw one on there.
I think the most recent one's Spain, and I just watched that one. But I watched the trip and Trip to Italy during the hurricane last year. I had them downloaded on my iPad and watched them, and was very pleased. It kind of distracted me from the lack of power. All right, Corey, what are your honorable mentions?
Romy and Michelle.
Oh, that's a good one.
I have Chewie and Han, C-3PO and R2-D2, Woody and Buzz, and Matt and Cara Ethel from Pizza.
Oh, Woody and Buzz is a real good one. I like that. What, from Pizza?
Oh, Matt and Cara Ethel from the movie Pizza.
I don't know that.
I know, I've talked about it before, and I didn't know it was a made-for-TV movie.
Ah, okay.
But I bought it on DVD. I bought it because Ethan Embry's in it.
Ah, there you go.
All right. That's why.
Yep. Mike, what do you got?
All right, I have The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson from The Other Guys.
Oh, nice.
Even though it's only for a small bit, even though they're not the main characters, they may play a main part in the film. Ed Norton and Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Consider
that. Yeah, that I felt that was too obvious, so I didn't go with it. Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future.
Yep.
We talked Harrison Ford and Peter Mayhew from Star Wars already. Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes in any of the View Askew universe films. And rounding out my second appearance of Samuel L. Jackson with John Travolta in Pulp Fiction.
I considered that for sure. I felt like the movie wasn't about their relationship, so I didn't include it in my list. But I mean, I love those two characters together, so I've had to talk myself out of including them in honorable mentions or on the list. But yeah, I'm glad they got brought up because Jules and Vinny are awesome. So, alright folks, that is another episode of Top 5 Movies. We'd love to hear your dynamic duos. Who did we leave off? Is there anything we left out? I feel like there was one that inspired this list before Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I could not recall while making my list, and I was really frustrated. I'm like, there's one that I just saw that I really want, and I cannot think of what it is. There's so many, again, this is what hits you personally. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best movie, but what's the best dynamic duo? You can hit us up, contact@burkreviews.com, contact@burkreviews.com, or follow us on social media. I am at Burk Reviews. Corey?
At Corey R. Star, 2 R's on the end.
And Mikey.
At Server Monkey.
And until next time, folks, keep watching movies.